Commander Nikolai Volkov stood motionless on the observation deck of the Hyperion, his breath catching as the sleek vessel of the Lumedians glided alongside his ship. After 15 years in deep space exploration, this was humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization. The diplomatic mission rested heavily on his shoulders. Atmospheric lock established, Commander. Lieutenant Olivia Reyes reported from behind him. Their envoy will arrive in Docking Bay 3 in approximately 5 minutes. Nikolai nodded, straightening his midnight blue uniform. Inform Dr. Patel to meet us there with the translation matrix. This isn't a drill, people. The corridors of the Hyperion hummed with nervous energy as Nikolai made his way to the docking bay, flanked by his security chief, Marcus Way. The crew they passed stood at attention, eyes wide with anticipation. You think they'll look like the simulations? Marcus whispered. Intelligence gathered from long-range scans can only tell us so much. Nikolai replied, his Russian accent thickening with stress. Be prepared for anything. The docking bay doors slid open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing Dr. Patel already waiting with her translation equipment. The circular chamber had been prepared according to the sparse communication protocols established over the past 3 months. Neutral temperature, standard lighting, and a small delegation of only essential personnel. A soft chime announced the arrival of the Lumedian craft. The airlock cycled, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, a figure stepped through. She, for the being before them, appeared distinctly feminine moved, with a fluid grace that seemed to defy the ship's artificial gravity. Her skin shimmered with an opalescent quality, catching the light in patterns that shifted like the surface of a soap bubble. Where human skin would show imperfections, hers displayed intricate markings that seemed to pulse with an internal rhythm. But it was her eyes that captured Nikolai's attention, deep violet orbs that reflected the stars themselves, pupils expanding slightly as she took in the humans before her. I am Solara, she said, her voice melodic and clear, requiring no translation. Diplomatic emissary of the Lumedian confluence. Nikolai stepped forward, momentarily forgetting protocol. Commander Nikolai Volkov of the Earth Exploration Vessel. Hyperion, we welcome you aboard. Solara tilted her head, studying him with curious intensity. Your transmission data did not prepare me for the diversity of human appearance. Her gaze lingered on the scar that ran from his right temple to his jaw, reminder of a navigation accident from his early days in space. Is my appearance disturbing? Nikolai asked, suddenly self-conscious. Solara's markings pulsed with a soft blue light. On the contrary, Commander, your face tells a story. Among my people, such marks would be considered signs of experience of survival. Something in her tone made Nikolai's heart race unexpectedly. Perhaps, she continued, extending her hand in perfect mimicry of human custom, you might share that story with me during our diplomatic discussions. As their hands met, Nikolai felt a slight electric tingle where their skin connected. Solara's eyes widened fractionally, suggesting she felt it too. I look forward to our discussions, Emissary Solara, he replied, aware that the future of human Lumedian relations might hinge on this moment, yet unable to shake the feeling that something far more personal had just begun. Behind them, Dr. Patel exchanged glances with Marcus, both recognizing the subtle shift in their commander's demeanor. The diplomatic mission had officially begun, but so had something neither Earth nor Lumedia had anticipated. The language of Vi. Stars. The Hyperion's conference room had been transformed for the diplomatic sessions. Its utilitarian design softened with borrowed botanical specimens from the ship's hydroponics bay. Nikolai watched as Solara moved among the earth plants, her fingers hovering just above their leaves, never quite touching. Your flora contains similar biochemical structures to those in our home system, she observed, her markings shifting to a contemplative emerald hue. Yet the evolutionary paths diverged significantly. Dr. Patel leaned forward eagerly. We've been theorizing about parallel evolution across different star systems. This could confirm. Perhaps we should focus on the trade agreement foundations. First, Lieutenant Reyes interjected, always the pragmatist. Nikolai noticed how Solara's markings dimmed slightly at the interruption. 3 days into negotiations, he was beginning to read her nonverbal cues, despite Dr. Patel's translation matrix sitting mostly unused between them. "We have time," Nikolai said gently. "Scientific exchange is as valuable as resource agreements." Hours later, the official delegation had dispersed, leaving Nikolai and Solara alone in the ship's arboretum. The artificial day cycle had dimmed to simulate evening, casting the exotic plants in soft blue emergency lighting. "Your crew respects you deeply," Solara noted, standing beside him at the viewport. "Yet they seem concerned about our interactions." Nikolai smiled ruefully. "Humans can be protective of their commanders, as are Lumedians of their emissaries." Her violet eyes met his. "Especially those sent to potentially volatile species." "Are we considered volatile?" he asked, surprised. Solara's markings pulsed with what he'd come to recognize as amusement. "Your historical records that you shared speak of numerous conflicts, yet also of remarkable resilience and creativity. And the Lumedians have no history of conflict. Our conflicts tend to be ... internal." Something in her voice suggested deeper meaning. "The marks on our skin tell our stories, Commander. Some are born with them, others earn them through life." Nikolai unconsciously touched the scar on his face. "Like this?" "May I?" she asked, raising her hand toward his face. He nodded, suddenly breathless as her fingers hovered near his scar without touching, just as she'd done with the plants. "Among my people, to touch another's markings is ... intimate," she explained. "We can sense the emotional imprint of experiences. Your scientific minds might call it a form of psychometry." "And what would you call it?" Nikolai asked, his voice lower than intended. "Understanding," she replied simply. "May I understand you, Nikolai?" The use of his first name created a shift between them, acknowledging something neither had verbalized. "Yes," he whispered. Her fingertips brushed his scar with featherlight. "Pressure." Nikolai gasped as warmth spread from the point of contact, accompanied by flashes of memory. The accident, the pain, and also the lessons learned. Solara's markings pulsed rapidly, with brilliant colors he hadn't seen before. "You were protecting someone," she said softly, "at great cost to yourself." "My navigator would have died," he confirmed. "It was instinct. Such instincts are rare and precious, across all worlds." Her hand lingered near his face. "Our languages may differ, Nikolai, but I'm beginning to think our hearts speak the same way." The ship's comm system interrupted with Lieutenant Reyes's urgent voice. "Commander, to the bridge immediately. We're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the nearby star." Nikolai and Solara locked eyes, the moment broken, but the connection unmistakably formed as they hurried toward what would become their first shared crisis. The Hyperion's bridge pulsed with emergency lighting as Nikolai burst through the doors, Solara close behind. The main view screen displayed a horrifying sight. The previously stable star had developed massive prominence arcs, one heading directly toward their position. "Status report," Nikolai commanded, sliding into the captain's chair. "Class 10 solar flare with associated coronal mass ejection," Science Officer Javier Morales reported, his fingers flying over holographic displays. "Impact in 22 minutes. Our shields can't withstand a direct hit." "The Lumedian vessel?" Nikolai asked, glancing at Solara. Lieutenant Reyes looked grim. "Their shielding technology appears more advanced, but they're directly in the ejection path." Solara stepped forward, her markings pulsing rapidly with alarming crimson patterns. "Our vessel's shields utilize crystalline resonance technology. They will not withstand this magnitude of radiation alone. Nikolai made a quick decision. Prepare evacuation protocols. We'll combine our crews aboard the Lumidian ship. No, Solara interrupted, her voice suddenly carrying an authority. That silenced the bridge. There is another way, but it requires trust. We're listening, Nikolai said, aware of the seconds ticking away. Our ships must work in tandem. The Hyperion's deflector array can be modified to create a dispersal field that, when synchronized, with our resonance shields, could divert enough of the solar matter to survive? Science Officer Morales looked skeptical. That's theoretically possible, but we'd need to completely reconfigure our systems in minutes. And we'd need someone aboard your vessel to coordinate the synchronization, Nikolai added, seeing the plan take shape. Solara's markings stabilized into a determined blue pattern. I will return to my ship. We can establish a direct neural link between our vessels. Neural link? Dr. Patel questioned from her station. It means I would connect directly to her. Nikolai realized aloud, mentally. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Such technology went far beyond anything humans had developed. 14 minutes to impact, Reyes warned. Do it, Nikolai ordered. Prepare the deflector modifications. I'll establish the link with emissary Solara. Minutes later, in the Hyperion's communications hub, Nikolai sat facing Solara as Dr. Patel attached monitoring devices to his temples. This will allow me to guide your ship's systems while coordinating with mine, Solara explained, revealing a small crystalline device in her palm. But you should know this connection goes beyond data. Thoughts, emotions, memories, they may transfer between us. Nikolai met her gaze steadily. I trust you. 8 minutes to impact, came Reyes' voice over the comm. Solara pressed the crystal to Nikolai's forehead. Instantly, his consciousness expanded beyond his body. He could feel the Hyperion systems as extensions of his nervous system, and beyond that, Solara's presence, radiant and complex. Guide the deflector array to these coordinates. Her thoughts flowed into his. He complied, feeling the ship respond to commands he issued through thought. Alone, as the solar ejection approached, their minds worked in perfect synchronization. Through their connection, Nikolai glimpsed fragments of Solara's life, her isolation as a diplomatic emissary, chosen for her unique abilities that marked her as different even among her kind. You see me, her thoughts whispered in wonder. And, you see me, he responded silently. The view screen showed the massive wall of superheated plasma bearing down on them. At the last possible moment, the combined shield technologies activated, creating a shimmering barrier between the ships and destruction. The solar matter struck with devastating force. Pain lanced through Nikolai as the neural connection amplified the strain on both vessels. He felt Solara's consciousness supporting his, their combined will holding the shields in place as the storm of stellar fire raged around them. Through their mental link, a single thought passed between them. Together, cultural revelations, the aftermath of the solar storm left both ships drifting in the eerie calm of space. Repair crews worked tirelessly, but the Hyperion had sustained significant damage to its propulsion systems. The neural link between Nikolai and Solara had been severed when the crisis passed, but its effects lingered like an echo in his mind. Nikolai found Solara in the observation lounge, her silhouette outlined against the backdrop of stars. The dim lighting accentuated her markings, which pulsed with subdued patterns he now recognized as contemplative. Our engineers estimate 3 days for repairs, he said, approaching slowly. Your crew has been ... invaluable. Solara turned, her violet eyes finding his immediately. The connection between us, it revealed much. Too much? Nikolai asked, uncertain where they stood after such profound intimacy. Among my people, what we experienced would be called sow weaving, she explained, gesturing for him to join her at the viewport. It is rare even between Lumidians, and unprecedented with another species. As Nikolai sat beside her, he noticed faint new markings along her forearms, delicate patterns that hadn't been there before. "Your markings have changed," he observed. Solara's expression softened. "Yes, this is complicated to explain." She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. When Lumidians experience profound emotional or physical events, our bodies record them. These new patterns reflect our connection during the crisis. "They're beautiful," Nikolai said honestly. "They mark me as changed," she replied. "Among my kind, I will now be seen as," she searched for the word, "influenced by humanity. By you specifically." Understanding dawned on Nikolai. "Will this compromise your position as emissary?" "Perhaps." The confluence values diplomatic purity. Her markings flickered with concern. "Some will argue I can no longer represent Lumidian interests objectively. Because we faced death together? That's absurd." Solara smiled sadly. "It's more than that, Nikolai. The neural link revealed emotions between us that transcend diplomatic relations. The admission hung between them, neither willing to retreat from its truth. During our connection," Nikolai said carefully, "I saw memories of your childhood. You were isolated because of your abilities." Solara's markings dimmed. "I was chosen as emissary because my neural capabilities exceed most Lumidians. This makes my valuable, but also separate." "I understand isolation," Nikolai confessed. "Command has its own kind of loneliness." Their hands rested on the viewport ledge, inches apart, yet separated by more than physical distance, by cultures, protocols, and expectations of two different worlds. "There's something else you should know," Solara said, her voice barely above. A whisper. "The Sao weaving has created a permanent resonance between us. Even without the crystal technology, I can sense your strongest emotions, as you might sense mine." To demonstrate, she closed her eyes in concentration. Nikolai felt gentle warmth spread through his consciousness, not invasive, but like sunlight touching the surface of a lake. "Is this normal for your people?" he asked, astonished. "No," she admitted. "This depth of connection normally takes years to develop, even between bonded pairs." Her markings flushed with a color he'd never seen before, something between rose and gold. "The neural scientists on my vessel are concerned." "And are you concerned?" Solara's gaze met his, unflinching. "I am many things, Nikolai. Concerned, yes, but also curious and hopeful." Before he could respond, Lieutenant Race's voice interrupted over the "Commander, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. They're demanding a full report on the Lumidian contact, and—" She hesitated. "They're sending a diplomatic oversight team to ensure proper protocols are maintained." Nikolai's heart sank. "Acknowledged. I'll be right there." As he stood to leave, Solara caught his hand, the first time she had initiated such contact outside of necessity. Through their newfound connection, he felt her determination. "Our worlds are about to interfere," she said softly. "But what exists between us is ours alone." The diplomatic oversight vessel from Earth arrived with cold efficiency, docking alongside the partially repaired Hyperion. Similarly, a Lumidian council ship had appeared, its crystalline structure dwarfing Solara's diplomatic vessel in the Hyperion's conference room. Tension hung thick in the air. Admiral Helena Blackwood of Earth Command sat rigid at one end of the table, while Lumidian Elder Thalax occupied the other, his aged skin bearing more complex markings than Solara's, like a living tapestry of experience. The neural connection was a necessity, not a planned exchange, Nikolai explained for the third time, fighting to maintain his composure. "Regardless of intention, Commander Volkov, you have compromised yourself and potentially Earth's position." Admiral Blackwood stated flatly. Psychiatric evaluation indicates your objectivity is questionable where Emissary Solara is concerned. Elder Thalax's markings pulsed with what Nikolai now recognized as disapproval. The emissary has similarly been influenced. Her markings tell the story plainly a binding that cannot be undone. Solara sat silently beside Nikolai, her violet eyes focused on the table surface. Through their connection, he could feel her conflicted emotions duty, warring with desire. "We will be reassigning Commander Volkov," Admiral Blackwood announced. "A new diplomatic team will continue negotiations. And Emissary Solara will be recalled for purification and reassignment," Elder Thalax added. "These are the decisions of our respective authorities." Nikolai felt Solara's spike of alarm through their connection. Purification? He thought toward her. A process to remove emotional attachments, came her response in his mind. Including our bond. The realization struck. Nikolai liked physical pain. They would erase what had grown between them, the understanding, the connection that had saved both their ships. "No," Nikolai said aloud, surprising everyone in the room, including himself. Admiral Blackwood's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me, Commander?" Nikolai stood slowly. "With respect, Admiral, I believe we're making a catastrophic mistake. What happened between Emissary Solara and myself isn't a diplomatic incident to be contained. It's a breakthrough." Solara rose beside him, her markings beginning to pulse with strength. "Elder Thalax, the connection formed between Commander Volkov and myself demonstrates possibilities our theorists have only speculated about true cross-species understanding. This emotional attachment clouds judgment," Elder Thalax insisted. "Does it?" Nikolai challenged. "Or does it provide perspective neither of our species could achieve alone? The neural link saved both our ships. What else might be possible if we embrace this connection rather than fear it?" Through their bond, Nikolai felt Solara's encouragement flowing into him like a current of strength. He continued, "We stand at a crossroads. We can retreat into our separate worlds, or we can explore what lies beyond our current understanding." Solara stepped forward, her markings now radiating with brilliant purpose. "I request the right of Kalindra," she announced formally. Elder Thalax's markings flashed with shock. "You invoke ancient law, Emissary?" "I do," she replied steadily. "The right to choose one's path when that path serves a greater purpose than assigned duty." The conference room fell silent as the implications settled over everyone present. "What is she talking about?" Admiral Blackwood demanded. "She's invoking her right to determine her own fate," Nikolai explained, the knowledge flowing to him through their connection. "Can I stand with her decision?" Elder Thalax studied them both with ancient eyes. "The Kalindra has not been invoked in 7 generations. It requires proof that the chosen path serves our people better than the assigned one." "Then give us that chance," Solara said. "Allow us to demonstrate what this connection can achieve, not just for diplomacy, but for true understanding between our species." Admiral Blackwood looked skeptical, but something in Nikolai's unwavering stance gave her pause. "What exactly are you proposing, Commander?" "A joint mission," Nikolai said, the idea crystallizing as he spoke, "with Solara and myself as co-commanders, exploring the possibilities of human-Limidian cooperation beyond formal diplomacy." The hours of negotiation that followed tested both their resolves, but as the ships departed 3 days later, something unprecedented had been achieved. The newly commissioned vessel Horizon drifted between them, smaller than the Hyperion, but integrating both human and Lumidian technologies. On its bridge, Nikolai and Solara stood side by side, watching their respective command ships disappear into the distance. "They still think we'll fail," Nikolai said quietly. Solara's hand found his, her markings glowing with serene confidence. "Perhaps, but they've given us 1 cycle to prove otherwise." 1 year is better than nothing, He agreed. Through their strengthened bond, they shared a moment of perfect understanding. The path ahead would be challenging, uncharted, and possibly dangerous. But it was theirs to explore together. "Where shall we begin, Commander?" Solara asked, her violet eyes reflecting starlight and possibility. Nikolai smiled, feeling the ship come alive around them, a physical manifestation of their connection. Human and Lumedian technologies, working in harmony just as they did. "Beyond the horizon," he replied, as the stars beckoned before them. The horizon's engines hummed to life, propelling them into the unknown not as representatives of separate worlds, but as pioneers of a new understanding that transcended the boundaries of species, space, and heart.